Hi everyone, it's Nicole here for Simon Says Stamp, and today I'm going to share this Easter kit tunnel card with you. Simon has just released a limited edition Easter kit, and I decided to take components from the kit to create a tunnel card so it has this great pop-up design in the middle. I was inspired to create this with the products in the kit because it comes with some awesome nested eggs dies. We're going to take the sea glass cardstock from the kit and first trim the 8.5 by 11 piece in half. So we have two 5.5 by 8.5 pieces. And then I had extra sea glass cardstock in my stash, but if you don't, you can always use another piece of cardstock or a contrasting color of cardstock or pattern paper. Trim that to 4.25 by 5.5 inches. From one of the pieces of 5.5 by 8.5 sea glass cardstock panels, score it in half like a side fold card and trim a 1/2 inch off the back of that piece. Then we're going to score the other piece at a 1/2 inch, 4.25, and then 4.75. This is going to create that box pop-up thing inside. And we're going to be able to die cut the nested egg dies from this to create our awesome little tunnel design. From the remaining 4.25 by 5.5 inch piece, I scored it 1/4 of an inch from each end. I'm using a bone folder now to make sure that the creases are really good and nice and creased. Just going to take that bone folder and make sure. And then we're going to take our awesome nested dies. These can create all kinds of fantastic accents for your cards and other paper crafting projects, or you can use them as frames as I'm doing here today. I'm taking the largest nested egg die and die cutting it from the panel that has the 3 score lines. We want to score that from the panel that has the 1/2 inch section over on the left. Then we're going to take the other panel that has the score lines at a 1/4 inch from each side, line it up with the panel we just used, and die cut the next smallest nested egg die. This is going to make, when our card opens and pops up, that tunnel effect. Now that I have these, I'm going to start putting this together, but I'm going to stop at a certain point because we are going to be creating a background piece, and I think it's easier to do that before you've assembled the whole card. I've put some 1/8 inch double-sided tape on both sides of the smallest piece of cardstock. We're going to stick it inside of our larger piece, and we're going to score down that side. You can see when you pop it up that it has that tunnel effect. Let's go ahead and just set that aside now for a second, and let's figure out our inside piece. The extra sweet Easter, stamp set that comes in the kit did not come with dies inside the kit, which is totally fine. You could fussy cut if you wanted to, but I limited my fussy cutting to just a few images for the tunnel. Everything else is going to be a flat layer. That's just because I personally don't love fussy cutting a ton, and so anytime I can eliminate that step, I like to do that. I'm going to trace my egg shape that this needs to fit behind on my cardstock panel. I can erase this once I've stamped the image, but I want to make sure I get it lined up. I wasn't totally happy with that first one, so I'm just going to draw that in again with a pencil line. And then I can take the bunny sitting on the ground coloring Easter eggs from the Extra Sweet Easter stamp set and stamp him on the background. I'm going to stamp the bunny, and I'm also going to stamp the bird. My goal for this card was to not do any masking. So instead of masking my images and inking the background, I'm instead going to take Copic markers and color the background. Before I do that, I want to make sure that I remove my pencil line so I don't color over it and that I'm not able to remove it later. So I want to make sure and get rid of that first, and then I'm going to start adding color to my card. Here's that cute little bird image that I added to the top of the bunny. If you didn't know better, you would think it just came, the whole image stamped just like that. I am going to zoom in a little bit and color in the images. I did speed up the coloring a lot. However, I've had many requests to leave in as much coloring as possible, so I have done that today. It does make the video a little bit longer, but I hope you enjoy the process. The bunny is colored with E30, 31, 55, and 57, with R00 for the insides of the ears and the bottoms of the feet. We'll even add a little R00 to the cheeks on the bunny after we've got all of our shading done. These bunnies are so cute. And the stamp set is a huge 6x8 stamp set with lots of sentiments and lots of images. When I get the shading done, I did take my markers, the darker markers, and add a little dot detail to give my bunny a little bit of texture. There was that R00 for the cheeks. The belly of the bird is Y000, and the rest of the bird is BG11 and 13 with YR04 for the cheeks. I did let the colors on the bunny dry all the way before I went in and added the dot detail. So I'm going to go ahead and go around my image with my blue markers to add in that sky. I don't have to go clear to the sides because we're only going to be seeing the part that really opens up where the eggs are. You want to extend it a little bit because as that tunnel effect pops up, you can see to the side a little bit. Same goes for the images along the bottom edge. Part of those are actually going to be covered up with the frame. Even though I probably could have left some of them blank and not colored them in, I opted to color all of them in and add a grassy border down near the bottom so that if you look at the card from the side, all of the images are colored in. I concentrated the darkest of the blue colors down near the horizon line, down near the base, and I'm blending those out as I get further up. I started light and then gradually darkened the sky as I kind of got a good feel for how it was going to look. It was also much easier to blend the more saturated the paper got. I tried to be careful not to oversaturate the paper so that the colors didn't bleed into the bunny. Now that we have our sky colored in, I'm going to add a little red for the inside of the mouth with R35 and color in the pink eggs with RV52 and 55. The purple egg is BV11 and 13, and the orange is YR01 and 04. The blue egg is B00 and B04. A little light blue for the bowl that the bunny is dipping the eggs into, and some warm grays for the egg carton. For his little beret, I'm using R30, 32, and 35. This gives it a peachy red color that I really love. It also adds another color to the design, a little bit more on the red tone, but not bright red. I did use R35 and R37 for the bandana around his neck. I'm a big fan of adding red into my projects in different areas. I love that little pop of color. The yellows are Y11 and 08, and we're just going to finish with some blades of grass in YG17. That rounds out the background of our card. Let's go ahead and add some accents with a black gel pen on the eyes and the nose, and that dot detail all over the bunny with the darkest markers that I mentioned earlier. I'm adding in a little white pin detail as well. I'm going to adhere this then to the back of our tunnel pop-up. I'm going to use some strong adhesive. The reason I didn't put the tunnel pop-up together first is it's a lot easier to line this up perfectly when it's still flat. Now remember, I already have that adhesive on the other side of the small layer. Let's put some adhesive on the back of our card base, that short side that we trimmed 1/2 inch off, and go ahead and layer in our tunnel piece. And here you can kind of see what it's going to look like once it's all assembled. Let's lay flat that first layer inside, remove the double-sided tape, and then we're going to lay down the front layer completely and press that nice and firmly. Then on that final 1/2 inch side, I'm going to put a couple more pieces of double-sided tape, remove those, and we can press the front of the card over this now and secure that, and that is going to create the tunnel pop-up. Now I like to move the card back and forth. Any interactive card I create, I like to kind of move those and make the creases and score lines really work. The more you use it, the better they work. For the remaining inside of the card, I want to use this adorable little chick from the Extra Sweet Easter stamp set and some Easter eggs. I stamped 3 here, but I ended up stamping an additional 1 to use on my card. I'm using many of the same colors that you saw me use in the first image. We're just going to color in the chick and those eggs, and then all of these will be fussy cut with some scissors. So you can see what I mean about trimming or fussy cutting as few images as possible. But this is going to give that depth and dimension like you're looking through the tunnel. So the first layer is going to have some eggs and some jelly beans. The second layer is going to feature the chick hatching out of the egg. And finally, the back of the tunnel features the bunny and the bird that we just colored. I'll show you that as I put those all together here in a minute. I want to make sure that all of my eggs are nice and bright. The base of our card and the background that I'm coloring in for the image inside and on the front are all blue, so I went with lots of bright colors for the rest of the images. I fussy cut those off camera to save a little time, and I added detail to the eyes on the chick just like I did on my bunny. If you want to add any highlights to the images with a white pen, like I did here, go ahead and do that before you glue those in place on the card. It will be much easier. A pair of tweezers can be really helpful when working on this kind of a project. If you need to pinch an image in place and hold it there with liquid glue. I love using liquid glue when I'm attaching images to cards like this. A crystal katana or jewel picker is also helpful with some small images. This egg that I'm trying to adhere to the back of the first nested egg layer is kind of tricky, so my tweezers really come in handy so that I can keep my fingers out of the way. I like using a strong adhesive like a liquid adhesive. I'm using the Gina K Connect glue here as it works really good, and I don't have to worry that my images might fall off with a tape runner kind of dispenser adhesive. I made sure and put images on both the right and left sides of the frame, and you can see the eggs on the front, and then of course our chick on that second layer and the bunny in the back, as I mentioned a minute ago. I did forget to do a little stamping before I layered that back piece in, but I went ahead and added the little peep peep sentiment up in the sky by the little bird using some mermaid ink from Lawn Fawn. Here's that last egg that I decided I needed to add. I like adding my embellishments in odd numbers. In addition to these eggs, we will be taking some of the jelly bean stickers included in this limited edition Easter kit and adding those once we're finished putting the rest of our card together. Now while I'm working on the front of the card, I decided to take the glossy accents, which is also included in this limited edition Easter kit, and layer that over my eggs, including the eggs that the bunny is dyeing in the back of the card. Because I can set aside the card and let it dry while I do the coloring, this works. You want to make sure that you don't shut the cover of your card because you're going to get glossy accents everywhere. I even added it to the beak of the chick so that it has a nice glossy beak. Glossy accents is going to dry nice and flat and not really pop up, and so once it's completely dry, it adds that nice shiny glossy finish, but it won't add any bulk. From another piece of sea glass cardstock, I'm going to die cut a frame using again that largest nested eggs die and also a basic rectangles die from my stash. Both of these are exclusive Simon Says stamp dies. I also have another piece of white cardstock that I'm going to layer behind, trace that egg shape on, so again it gives me a little bit of a guide to know where to stamp. And I'm going to stamp another image from the EGGSTRA Sweet Easter stamp set right there on this panel. I'm going to kind of line it up with the bottom of this egg and stamp this with the Hero Arts Intense Black ink. This is a great ink for Copic coloring. Again, I want to erase my pencil line just in case some of it might show. In this case, we're not really going to see anything outside the framework of the oval because we're going to adhere it flat. Because these tunnel cards have quite a few layers, I try to limit the dimension on the front of the card so that it still mails easily. Once I have my pencil line completely erased, I can start coloring in my image. I'm going to start with the grass along the bottom edge of the card with YG 21, 25, and 17, and then of course my sky, which is going to be colored with the same shades of blue that I used for the inside. Be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 4, and 5. It looks like a few of my markers are getting a little low on ink and I need to refill them. Again, I'm concentrating the darker part of the sky down near the horizon line, and I'm building the intensity and color. I'm not starting super dark to start with. Now there's quite a bit of space up at the top of this oval, and that's going to leave room for our sentiment that we're going to stamp from the EGGSTRA Sweet Easter stamp set. Before I get too far into this, and after I've colored the sky, I want to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. I only want to stamp the part that says chocolate and jelly beans with my black ink, and the rest of the sentiment, the little phrase up above it, I'm going to mask off with some Post-it tape and stamp that separately on some of the green cardstock also included in this limited edition Easter kit. That's going to add some nice little decorative element to the top of the front of the card. And also it's just going to fit a lot better. I love how the sentiment slightly overlaps the image as well. It doesn't look great yet, but once I've colored in the rest of the images, it really, really shines. I made sure to stamp the chocolate and jelly bean sentiment with that same intense black ink, as I am coloring over this with Copic markers, and if I use another kind of ink, I could run the risk of that ink that I used to stamp the sentiment bleeding a little bit. So I always like to make sure and just stick with an ink that works with Copic markers. I am now coloring in my bunny first. I tend to always go for the biggest areas first and fill in with the smallest. In this case, the bunny is quite large. If I had left part of the pencil line along the bottom edge, I probably wouldn't have had to color in the entire bunny. As it is, I'd never ended up coloring in his tail because it's not going to be seen in the finished card. I will be sure to add in some dot detail with my darkest markers, just like I did on the bunny on the inside of our card design. The wagon is going to be E55 and E57. These are the same colors we used for the bunny, but we're going to use those for the wagon instead, and we're going to pull in some warm grays for the bottom of the wagon. We'll color in the rope with E57 only to make that nice and dark. Adding in some green for the leaves on the flowers down there, down near the base of the little wheelbarrow or wagon. And then we're going to add in the color for the rest of that and add in some warm grays for the wheel itself. I didn't do a ton of shading here, mostly sticking to about 2 colors or 2 shades per color. The bunny has more shading, but almost everything else is only 2 shades. I went in and added some darker greenery along the bottom, much like the inside panel of the card. We'll blend that out with our YG25 and YG21. And again, when we are all done coloring in everything on the card and the markers have dried, we can go in and draw some blades of grass. The birds are colored with BG11 and 13 and Y000 with YR04 for the beaks. And then we're going to use lots of the same colors that you saw from the inside. So our pink color combination is RV52 and 55. Our yellow combination is Y11 and 08. That peachy pink red is R30 and 32 with R35 for the polka dots here, which also add a nice pop of color. R35 is what's used for the inside of the bunny's mouth as well. BV11 and 13 for some of the jelly beans or eggs. YR01 and 04 for orange. And we're just going to keep repeating that throughout the design until we have nice bright colors on everything. The jelly bean sentiment works really well with this particular image because of all those cute little jelly beans. And then don't forget, we have the jelly bean stickers included in the kit that we're going to add to this, which really rounds out and ties the whole thing together. I thought it was a little bit too much blue on blue, even though I really love the frame. So I ended up die cutting another rectangle, or you could just trim a rectangle with your paper trimmer. And I tried a couple different colors and I ended up opting to use white. So we're going to mat this panel on a white cardstock panel to put on the front of our card. I did go ahead and add my white pin detail and black gel pin detail before layering the elements. And I want to add in those great blades of grass that add some great texture to the little landscape of our card. That double-sided tape is going to be used again around our frame. We'll pop this in place, mat this on the white cardstock panel, and pop this on the front of our card design. And I'm centering this right on the front. I love that the image on the front of the card is beautiful all on its own, and then when you open up the card, it pops up to reveal another cute one inside. Another couple of cute ones inside. Finally, we are going to take those jelly bean stickers and we're going to adhere several of those along the bottom edge of the front of the card. And then we're going to adhere a couple more inside. I've also stamped and embossed the rest of that sentiment that we used for the front of the card on some of the green cardstock using a clear ink and white embossing powder, trimming that into a thin strip and securing it with the double-sided adhesive. You get tons of these jelly bean stickers. I didn't even come close to using all of them, so I have plenty to use on another project. I've got 3 along the left side, 2 on the right, and then we're going to open up the card and add 3 more inside next to the eggs on either side of the tunnel frame. If you want to make sure that these don't move at all, I would suggest putting a little glossy accents or another strong liquid adhesive like the Gina K Connect behind these. And here's a look at the finished tunnel card featuring the Simon Says stamp limited edition Easter kit for 2019. Don't forget to add glossy accents to the eggs on the front of the card so they match the ones that we added glossy accents to on the inside of the card. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says stamps and dies that you might be interested in. These are all Easter related cards, so I hope they get you ready for the upcoming holiday. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.